Hi there, this is Ronnie, Amber's Night, coming at you with a video. Um, I posted a question on the RPG Brigade Facebook page, and I'm going to do a video on it, just to expand my point a little. The basic question that I asked was, given the sheer multitude of high fantasy games and generic rule systems that allow you to play in a fantasy world, I'm thinking about things like GURPS and Savage Worlds and True 20 and Quirp and all these sort of things that are generic rules but give you the option to use them in a fantasy setting. Given the multitude out there, is there a place for a new edition of D&D? Or, to ask the question more accurately, if it weren't for the brand name Dungeons and Dragons, would this game get a release? Would it have a chance without the brand name? As I mentioned on Facebook, I bought Savage Worlds just past Christmas, and I bought some of the companions for it, and one of the ones I bought was the Fantasy Companion when it finally got re-released. And between the Savage Worlds core rulebook and the Fantasy Companion, there is more than enough there for a generic fantasy game. Now, it doesn't come with a setting, but if you have any experience at all at GMing, you can get around that. You can adapt a setting, or you can create one, which is what I'm doing. But you don't. You're actually less hamstrung because you can create your own setting. But there's more than enough there. I think back to the first game I bought, funnily enough, which was D&D. It was the D&D basic set. And it didn't really have, not in the incarnation I had, any setting either. But there was more than enough to play. And I had that same buzz. I showed it to a friend of mine, and he immediately made up a character. And he hasn't played for years, and it immediately sparked a creative urge in him. And I can only think it was the fact that it took him right back to that point. To the point where, as much as I love playing Palladium, I may end up using, for example, the Palladium world, but using Savage Worlds settings. I'm very tempted to do that, actually, because Savage Worlds works better for me. But given the fact that there's, I mean, just from the ones I bought recently, there's Dragon Age, Song of Ice and Fire, Savage Worlds, as I mentioned. Obviously, there are big players out there. Pathfinder. There are previous versions of D&D which have just been re-released. I mean, okay, 4th edition's still kicking about, but they've been re-releasing 1st edition AD&D, 2nd edition AD&D, 3.5 as sort of collector's editions, but they're back out in print. I am kind of hoping that Wizards of the Coast go the whole hog now and re-release basically Expert, the Companion, the Master sets, because they'd be nice to get. They probably cost a flipping bomb now to buy, but they'd be nice to get. I think they'd be fun to get. But given the whole and there's far too many to mention, and they're all of varying success. Is there a place for D&D 5th? I know they don't want to call it D&D 5th, they want to call it D&D the next generation. But quite frankly, it's the next one after the 4th, so people are going to call it 5th, even if it's only to identify it, rather than D&D next. Is there a place for it? Because I can't think what this new edition is going to bring other than brand name that isn't available in all these other games. I mean, Pathfinder is pretty much, I mean, I don't own it. I've seen it, and I can see why it's successful. But it just, until I'd gotten Savage Worlds, I really wasn't interested. And I'm still not, now that I've got Savage Worlds. But I can see why people would buy it. But having bought it, why do you need to buy, why would you need to buy D&D Next? The other thing, and I've brought this up in a couple of other videos, I'm going to say it again. If you have a previous edition of D&D, the old basic D&D, first edition AD&D, second edition AD&D, 3.5, fourth edition, why do you need to buy the next edition? Why? Why, if you had previous edition, did you have to buy the ones after? I never understood that. I never will. I have 4th edition Call of Cthulhu. I have 4th edition Pendragon. That's not because I wasn't interested in the previous ones. It's just that when I was buying them, that was the one that was out. There have been newer editions since then. I've felt no need to go and get them because I have them already. I've got those games. They're there. I have them. So I don't understand this mentality that people buy new editions. So I'm putting it out there. What on earth, other than name recognition, does D&D Next bring to the table? What can it bring to the table? What could it possibly do to crack a market that is already overflowing with plenty of generic fantasy games, to the point possibly of being oversaturated? And given that, how can it break in there? And moreover, I suppose, does it have a right to break into it simply because it's D&D? You know, does the name brand demand attention? Or are we getting finally to the fact that name brand isn't enough? Because I think that's where we should get to. So I'd be interested in hearing people's thoughts on this. I really would. I'm not slagging off D&D. I'm not slagging off the next edition of D&D. I just don't know if there's any point to it other than the brand name. But I may be wrong.